Alright folks, I have some pumpkin porter that was left over, and so you end up with some dregs. This is stuff beer that was on some of the pumpkin pulp, and so it was hard to get out until you strained it off of the pumpkin pulp. And so I've just put it in these things. You can see it's starting to clear or settle, and I'll eventually end up with some clear beer on top. You can see that starting to clear out there, and that's starting to clear out a little bit. At any rate, one of the other things you can do with this stuff, because you either would have to put it in a keg, which for, you can see I got a gallon and a half or so here, and by the time the pulp settles out, I might have a gallon. But so it's kind of a pain in the butt. Do you bottle a gallon of beer, or do you, try to put it in a keg or something like that? One of the things I like to do is I like to take a generic Coorsmillerbud type beer, and then I'll just pour a little bit of my quality beer into a glass, and pour that Coorsmillerbud type beer in on top of it. It will carbonate it because it's plenty fizzy enough. And it will add some character to the beer. And instead of a light Coorsmillerbud Pilsner lager, you end up with something that's actually pretty tasty. So it's a good way to stretch your dollar, buy cheap beer, and add a little bit of quality beer to it, especially if it's a really dark, rich, thick beer like this pumpkin porter is. And it's pretty easy to do. Again, you can just keep it in these in your liquor bottles or 1 gallon jugs with an airlock on it, and when you're ready to have a beer, just pour a little bit of it in a glass, top it off with your Coorsmillerbud, and voila, you got a nice decent craft beer. Okay folks, so this is the pumpkin porter I showed you yesterday. You can see a day later it's settled out quite a bit. We got lots of sludge here on the bottom and nice clear beer on the top. And so I'm just going to show you real quick what this looks like. A good way to stretch your homebrew beer dollar. We're just going to pour a little bit of this pumpkin porter in here. And again, that's going to stir the sludge up a little bit, but that's okay, because by the time I use it again, it will have settled back down. And we're going to take a cheap beer. This here's some Big Flats Light, and I'm just going to pour that in there. And so you can see that's obviously much darker than the cheap Pilsner lager beer. And now that's a good tasty beer. And it certainly was economical because this stuff's like 50 cents a can. And of course a good craft beer could easily cost you $2 a can or more. So so we're stretching this, making it go. Plus we don't have to hassle with bottling this or kegging it or anything. Again, this was made from just the dregs from our pumpkin porter stuff. Put it in a bottle, let the sludgy stuff settle back out, and we'll just use the top here to make a cheap beer into a quality beer.